If you're in the process of learning how to play the guitar, you probably sometimes wonder, what can I do to make my playing have more feel? How can I make it better? Great, because there's always room for improvement. And one of the areas that is so often overlooked is articulation. So in this video, I will explain what articulation is and how you can improve it while playing the guitar. To kick things off and to hopefully show you what I mean by articulation, I prepared two versions of the same solo. Have a listen. As you can see, the first version has way more feel to it. I mean, I hope it does. Because it was pretty hard for me to get out of my comfort zone in playing and to emulate playing that's, really not my style. Basically, what the difference was between those two solos is the way that I connected and emphasized notes that are in it. Because the notes were roughly the same. But let's take, for example, the very beginning of the solo. This is how it sounded in the first version, and that's how I played it in the second one. Same notes, but articulated in a different way. So you can probably already guess that articulation is the way that we play notes, how loud, how we accent them, or how we connect them together. In this case, instead of just like brute forcing my way through the notes, strumming each and every one of them, I decided to go more delicate way and just strum the first one, and the rest just goes with the feel. This is one of the techniques that helps make your articulation better. So the definition of articulation is, let me check. Articulation is a fundamental musical parameter that determines how a single note or other discrete event is sounded. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it. I would say it also defines not only how a single note sounds, but also how a series of notes sound. I mean, it's more than one note, and it's still, I think, we should think about it as a whole. The first thing you can do to work on your articulation is simply think, which notes do you want to bring out more? Which notes you would like to play quieter, and which notes you would like to stand out. Let's take just a super simple pentatonic passage. This was articulated. If there was no articulation, we would play it probably like this. Not very exciting, right? And if we add even the basic, no vibrato, no complex articulation techniques, just quieter and louder notes. Okay, it was a little bit more than just the loudness of the notes, but you get the idea. Even with small changes, you can make a passage have way more feel. But to make it even more exciting, we can add some specific techniques that were developed to make our melodies sound better. I will show you a few of them that I'm the most familiar with, but it's definitely not all of those techniques, and feel free to look up other guitarists and solos and just try to get inspired. The first technique you can implement in your playing is hammer-ons and pull-offs. Those are actually two techniques, but they are really, really similar, so I like to think about them as one. So hammer-on is just strumming one note and then adding the other one, on the same wave. It connects your notes way smoother. And pull off is the same but reverse. Instead of hammering the other note, you pull off to the other note, to the previous note, maybe you should say, instead of. This is really useful and actually really simple and easy to implement in your playing. The other one, and very popular, is vibrato. So this is great for emphasizing a single note. And it's actually not that easy. There are many ways. I think there is like this blues vibrato that I don't even know how to play it. I probably butchered it. So just be aware that there are many techniques. You can sometimes see someone playing a vibrato in a different way, and it doesn't mean that they do it wrong. Maybe it's just a different technique. So we play vibrato by just grabbing the note. I mean, really grabbing, put some effort into it. And then in a constant manner, pulling it a little bit up and down. The longer you can make it play like that, the more pro you are. Third technique to make your articulation better are slides. Instead of just playing the next note that you planned to play, you can actually slide all the way from, the first note to the other. Or actually, you can do this, I don't know what it's called, but it's like slide from nowhere. So let's say I want to play a short passage and then come into the other in a smooth way. I can do it like that. You see what I mean? This is also not as easy as hammer-ons and pull-off. I would say it's easier than vibrato, but the more notes you have to cover, the harder it gets. So like sliding from A here to this E is pretty tricky in the beginning, but you just need to be consistent, train it, as we discussed in the first video, and you will be good. And you can also, which is like another level, you can slide a couple notes at the same time. Also pretty cool, pretty bluesy, funky. Next technique, very popular, is legato. Legato is, I hope the pronunciation is right. Legato is when you're playing notes without strumming them. If you have listened to the recent song by Steve Vai, Knapsack, which is a great composition by the way, you probably know what I'm talking about. You can have your right hand totally blocked out, I don't know, hidden behind your back, and still play some melodies. It may seem scary in the beginning because you need some strength in your left hand, but as always, just find some exercises that suit you well and be consistent, and you will be able to play legato in no time. I'm not even sure if my legato is good. I mean, there's quite a lot of noise. I don't know, maybe not so much. And legato is really useful if you want to play solo, but you want to play those quick, smooth passages without strumming every note, not like that. You can play. Another very simple and easy to implement technique is palm muting. What you do is you take your right hand, you put it in a delicate manner on your strings, and now every note that you will play will be cut whenever you want to cut it. So as you can see, your goal should be to be able to turn on and off the palm muting whenever you want to. It may not be so simple in the beginning, but as always, training, and you'll be good. As we are on the topic of palm muting, the opposite of it would be the let ring technique. So instead of cutting the note when you want it to stop, you just let it ring. It's honestly probably like the first technique you learn when you play the guitar. Just play the note and let it ring. Okay, the next technique that I'm thinking of may not exactly be articulation in the, the most direct understanding, but it's still something worth considering when writing a melody or anything. And it's whether you're using your pick or your fingers or anything else, maybe slide, to make the notes play. So as you can see, notes sound different depending if I'm playing them with the pick, which is more like precise and has more attack to it, or if I'm playing them with fingers, when they are just softer. Pretty logic. I'm focusing on single notes or a series of them, but I haven't tackled chords yet. And when playing chords, you can also think of articulating them in a certain way. For example, the most basic way of playing a chord is just strumming it all upward. Actually, that was downward, sorry. Upward or downward, which is the basic way. But it's not the only way of strumming a chord. You can arpeggiate it. Which is pretty similar, but you're just supposed to make every note stand out more than in the just strumming technique. You can also play chords using your fingers, and then all of the notes are sounded in the exact same time. This is actually the way of playing chords that I use the most often. Our last two techniques will be techniques inspired by playing bass guitar, but they're also viable for guitar and they can make your riffs really cool, especially if you're into funk. So one of them will be slap, when you're using your thumb to strike the note. It's pretty challenging because you aren't supposed to strum more than one string when you're doing it. So this is not ideal. You want it to sound more like and the other technique is pop. So you just pop the string. You pluck it. You grab it with your finger. You grab it with your finger and just pull it upwards. And those techniques are often combined. So you can often hear riffs like. Okay, so this is a handful of techniques that can definitely help you make your articulation more interesting, more exciting. Just try them out, think which one suits you the most, and which of them actually match your playstyle. And yeah, just remember, it's not always about speed or about harmony and what notes you choose when you're creating a melody or riff. It's also about how you play them. It's very important, and it's really easy to forget that it's not only about making the sound of your guitar, it's also about how you make the sound. So in the end, just to compare, we can play this simple pentatonic passage, and see how it would sound with articulation and without it. Let's start without it. And now with articulation. Whoa, right? It's not always like, hammer on here, pull off here, vibrato, slide. No. Too much is also not good. but just varying the way notes are played makes such a difference. The timing, the rhythm. So this definition of articulation actually doesn't cover rhythm, but I would say that the spacing notes and how much time you spend on a single note or on a series of notes is also something that I would consider an articulation, and something that you should think about when creating a melody. Playing all of the notes as the same time units usually doesn't sound too good. So spacing out your notes or sometimes cramping them up is a really nice way of changing your melody. I really hope this video was useful for you. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments or on my Instagram. I will be so glad to answer any of your questions. Please, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like, subscribe, and hopefully see you soon.